Hello, 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 and welcome to another fantastic episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable Discussion. Before we get started, let me remind you that we are covered by the BIPCOT No Government License, which allows for the reuse and distribution of this podcast by anyone and everyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more about that at bipcot.org. That is BIPCOT.org. We're also protected by Brandenburg v. Ohio, 1969. Which ruled that the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is directed to or inciting or producing lawless. I don't have it open in front of me. I'm sorry.
No, it's directed to promoting or inciting. Is it rebellion, sedition, something like that? Violence.
It's imminent lawless action.
Imminent lawless action. There you go.
Yeah. Let's see.
And is likely to do such.
Held that the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is, quote, directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action.
Most professional podcast ever.
It literally took me like 2 seconds to minimize my window and click on the note that I have that has that on it that I read every time that I didn't have open this time.
Let's just fucking wing it.
Episode. What is it? Episode 96, and we still can't get it right. So
still haven't figured out the opening. It's literally the same every time, but we can't do it.
The BIPCOT one I got memorized. That one's I hear that one in my sleep. But the Brandenburg v. Ohio one, I think that's only like 20 episodes, 25 episodes, something like that. But I hear it on Vonu and Liberty Under Attack also.
Yeah, and it's in 20 that's like 6 months. Yeah. 6 months of this we've been doing that opening. Still. Yeah, I don't know. Something.
Oh, yeah. See, look, I got the new patch. It says the beatings will continue. The beatings will continue until morale improves. I figured that was that fit.
Yeah,
like we were talking about before show. Just like I don't know why we never record the pre-show, but because we're not.
Do that. If we ever set up a Patreon, we could do that where we could do the pre-shows as a Patreon exclusive. That would actually be a perk that we could offer patrons.
Yeah.
So,
if we ever learned how to do audio editing and stuff.
Yeah, what would we even do with money from Patreon? Like I don't know. Buy
more of these armed abolitionist patches. I don't know.
Yeah, buy more patches to try and give away and have no one enter because
no one shared the post.
I have a free fucking patch to hand someone and no one apparently wants it. Or if they do, they like half follow the instructions and can't get the whole thing. Man,
people are hard to please.
Although
there's somebody that listens to the show that looked at that patch and goes, "Okay, that's a cool patch."
Yeah.
And then they didn't go to the Facebook page and share the post.
Yeah, so they could just get it,
which is pinned to the top of the page.
And I am not going to. I have more patches to give away, but I'm not giving them away until that one goes because now. No. Now it's
Did you see the new one from Poppins?
Did he release the Biden one?
He released the Biden one, but it's a new one. It's the Wookiee one.
Oh yeah, I did see that one actually. I think before he released it. Yeah. That one's pretty good. The I wish he'd do the Boogalorian one already that we kind of helped co-design with him, but I have one of these that I tried to give away to Josh, and I sent him a message on the post because he won it. Josh Hare, and he hasn't responded, so I haven't sent it to him yet. It's just sitting here, waiting. I have a bunch of things to give to you people. What? Just why? Here, let me give you free things. I don't want it. Yeah,
but it's free. No, we didn't vote for it, so it doesn't count.
Yeah. when I didn't vote for it.
Oh, voted. All right.
Strange men talking on podcasts is no basis for a system of giveaways.
Speaking of strange men talking about podcasts, what's the podcast you're recording Tuesday?
I will be on the Status Quo
with
Matt Freeman. And we will be talking about the kind of the rise of neo-fascism in the United States and the parallels between what we're seeing right now in the U.S. and like the Italy in the interwar years and the rise of Mussolini, as well as Germany and the Weimar Republic and the rise of Nazism, and also the difference between the two, which is a little murky but exists, and going into that and trying to define fascism, because fascism wasn't the same in Austria, wasn't the same as it originally was in Italy, wasn't the same as Nazi Germany, wasn't the same as the Ukraine, which kind of adopted it, wasn't the same as...
It's not the same as here.
Yeah, it's...
Just saying.
There's some core concepts that make fascism, and it's a misapplied term a lot. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people have this really strong tendency with fascism to just go, oh, well, you just think you're the best and everybody else is under you, so therefore fascism. That is not fascism.
Yeah.
that is elitism, but that is not fascism.
It's another one of those terms like racism and sexism and bigotry and homophobia and hate speech and just all these words that are supposed to have like solid, powerful meanings, and they're so watered down by modern uses that they've literally lost all their intended incantations. Well,
yeah, I mean, like, yeah, okay, so fascism communicates, a lot of these ideas and these connotations of superiority and of certain people being in charge and things, but everyone uses it for that. But that was not really, especially Mussolini's fascism. Mm-hmm. And he is the founder, arguably, of modern kind of fascism. Yeah, and was originally a socialist. Fun fact, everybody forgets that, and fascism really is socialism, and I'll get into that on Tuesday on that show. But the reality is that fascism isn't about elitism at all. It's that isn't what fascism is. It's actually an economic and kind of socioeconomic idea.
It's the, what is it, the intertwining federal control of certain industries, or
basically it's kind of the idea is that technically the state controls all of the businesses. It's corporatism is what it is that the major corporation, the state, then controls smaller corporations, which were previously private companies, and while those are ultimately still owned by private owners, they actually don't get to decide what they're going to do. They're essentially all wholly owned subsidiaries of the main corporation, the state, and it's a really interesting thing. And it is ultimately socialism. I mean, freaking Adolf Hitler spent most of Mein Kampf trying to argue that his brand of socialism was different than Stalin's brand of socialism, and that was like most of Mein Kampf, but nobody's ever actually read it, so they don't know that that's what he actually said. And that's the whole idea.
Most people don't understand 1984 either, so
they don't. And yet we're pretty much living in a dystopian future novel. I mean, like Huxley's Brave New World, Orwell's 1984, like that's
that Venn diagram where it's like 1984 and A Brave New World, and then
Fahrenheit 451.
Fahrenheit 451, like Animal Farm, and it's like You Are Here.
Yeah, we're just a mixture of all of them. Because we're living in this super weird, like, when I was even a kid, I could not have believed that we would find ourselves in the world that we found ourselves in at this point, especially with COVID. Like, holy crap, did I not?
not just with COVID, like having COVID, like the virus itself, yes, it aids in killing people and all this. So I'm not going to get into the numbers, but the reaction to it, the reaction to COVID, is tremendous. Like I read an article the other yesterday that talks about for the next 8 to 12 years, we're going to have a $2 trillion a year deficit because of the repercussions and the ramifications from the economic shutdown.
Oh yeah, it destroyed so many livelihoods. I saw a statistic today. It said something like between 75 and 80% of small businesses shut down because of COVID are not expected to reopen ever.
Ever.
My
New York City, they estimate that 100,000 businesses permanently close their doors.
Yeah. I mean, it's turning the United States into an economic wasteland, and even my company that I work for, which is a multi-billion-dollar company, saw, because we wholly own our own, capital, I think is the correct way to put that. Basically, we don't borrow money from anybody. We own everything. We saw a 40% loss in our receivables because of COVID, which might not seem like, oh, it's only 40%. Yeah, but when you're talking about receivables in the hundreds of millions of dollars, 40% is a huge number.
And what your business is, I don't know if you want to put that out. I think you've put it out there before, but like, you guys really should be one of those industries that is needed in a recession, that survives a recession.
Right. We should have been. And we actually anticipated that. I mean, initially at the beginning, we really anticipated a huge surge. And then we didn't see it. And not only did we not see it, but then everybody started paying off their debts to us when they got the stimulus package, because it forced everybody to kind of, what it did is it killed a lot of consumerism in the United States. And once that started dying, like, it just, everything's starting to fall apart because no one's buying anything. Everybody's actually hoarding what they're bringing in, all of the money. They're being really fiscally, at least right now. Because that's the thing I've learned in the industry I'm in lending, is people tend to go back to their old patterns of behavior eventually.
Oh yeah,
so, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, people like the tearing down of the statues is a perfect example of this. Is that people don't really learn from the past. Right, especially like modern day people that don't learn from the past. Like, this happened, and there will be some people that will take it as a sign and will change, but the vast majority of people, it'll be just another Tuesday. Like, they'll go back to it. They'll go absolutely back to the way they were. The same with after the slump in 2008, 2009, 2010, right? With the TARP bailouts that were like, was it like $900 billion, and people were absolutely losing their mind that the government put out $900 billion to bail out all these corporations, and they didn't blink at all. Over 2.3 trillion.
Yeah, trillions of dollars in bailing out companies, and
there's another bill on the books. There's another bill working through Congress right now for $3 trillion, including $1 trillion for infrastructures. And the GOP part of the one of the writers on that bill is from the GOP, and the lady wants to give people $4,000 to take a vacation.
Yeah, I know, which is funny because like I laughed about it.
We'll get to that bill in a second, because it's gonna be a good laugh.
Oh man, yeah, and that is a good laugh. But that's what you're seeing. I mean, and people don't see that what's happening is that because people don't have the income that they did before, because they don't have the reliability of the income streams, and suddenly, like with the Great Depression, they've been slapped with the reality that the economy could tank and companies wouldn't be producing things that they need anymore. We're seeing this rise again in hoarding and in personal recycling. Like, rather than throwing out this can, I can use this can for something. Rather than chucking this bottle, maybe I can use this bottle. Rather than using 8 pieces of paper towel to soak this mess up, I can use an actual like hand towel and then just wash it. We're starting to see that all come back again, which isn't necessarily entirely a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we're simultaneously also seeing them go, well, I need something that protects my revenue stream, and going, help me, daddy government. And it's playing into Cloward Piven perfectly.
Oh, Cloward Piven has been on my mind since this thing started. And I still think it's absolutely viable. I absolutely think that's viable. And that I think that's why Trump is going to get 4 more years.
Yeah. Well, he was a psyop to begin with, and anybody who thinks differently is
absolutely
kind of imbecile. But
he's the great appeaser.
Yeah, it was. Everything was coming to a head. We were about to see a second civil war happen if Clinton got elected. Everybody knew it. Everybody saw it coming.
They robbed us. They robbed us of our boogaloo.
Yeah, and it was a strategic move to keep that from occurring, because they weren't going to rebel against him, but they would have against Clinton.
Well, yeah, that's we've mentioned that before about the militia movement. All this build up to Clinton, all this build up into 2016, and Trump comes into office and it disappears. And then it takes like 2.5-ish years for people to realize what Trump is, and it gave rise to the meme militia and the all the boogaloo talk.
Yeah, the meme based insurgency.
Task Force Igloo.
Yep. This is actually one hell of a patch too. I don't remember where I got this from. I think I actually got this from it wasn't Savage Tacticians. It's actually a fairly and anarchist friendly page. I don't remember who it is, but it's actually so precision made. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but George Washington on this actually has the name George on his nameplate. And that is tiny, man. That is a morale patch. And it's actually got it on
that. Does he have a flag gator?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all right. That's kind of cool. That's cool patch.
Yeah, it's one hell of a patch. But yeah, he hey
guys.
Nice of you to join us.
Yeah, sorry about that.
She's on female time, so like she's on time right now.
I am the one who is almost always early for this shit, you guys. Come on now. But there's always a crisis around here. Well, no, scratch that. There's never a fucking crisis around here until I have some shit I have to do. And then there's a fucking crisis every time. So, yeah. Anyways.
We were just rambling and rambling about fascism and patches and economy and the weird vibe in the air. And,
ooh, my favorite.
And Andrew's gonna record on Tuesday with the Status Quo. Matt Freeman, who is hands down one of my favorites. That podcast, he is so information driven. It's a fantastic listen.
Nice.
Oh.
Nice.
Yeah. So. Yeah, he hit me up after the last episode when I had mentioned, kind of at the end where I'd been talking about the fact that what I'm seeing is the parallel.
He messaged me and he's like, that last 10 minutes or that rant by Andrew that hit the spot. Like he said, like that was what he was trying to say or something like that, and begged me to connect you to. But
yeah, from the last podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'd ended talking about...
Andrew went on like a 12-minute rant.
I did too.
So what's fucking new? Andrew always goes on 12-minute rants.
And they're almost always fucking beautiful.
Until he starts ranting about lacrosse, and then he just rambles on and on and on. I'm just saying.
No major rants about lacrosse right now. Other than complaining about the sudden spat of insane shootings that we've had, which is just what the hell. So that's Night before last, a 19-year-old guy working as a bouncer got shot at a bar in town because he kicked some drunk dude out because he wouldn't leave a chick alone. So he tossed him. So the dude went, got a gun, came back the next night and shot him. The hell. So,
hey guys, I have a really shitty connection. So give me a sec. I'm going to drop out and I'll be back.
Good luck.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it makes no sense. And that's that whole weird vibe in the air. I mean, everybody's losing their minds.
We've had people locked up, literally locked up, literally on house arrest for like 3 months now. Over 3 months now, because it was the second week of March here. So we're at like 3.5 months now.
The hell?
And then you give people money and people come out of it and it's hot, right? Summer's here, school's out, colleges are out. I mean,
oh yeah, it was like right now, I think today it only got up into the mid to high 80s, but like the other day it was like 95 degrees here and like 98% humidity. It was just disgusting.
That's like every day in Virginia in the summer.
I couldn't do the humidity. Like, give me the heat. I'll take the heat here. I mean, we get hundreds plus, but the humidity is only like 10, 12, 15, 18%.
Well, you guys have seen those pictures I've put on Facebook of the condensation on the outside of our windows in the morning sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like you left a glass of ice water sitting outside in the summer. It's just dripping down the fucking windows.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I lived in Georgia, North Carolina. I know what that's like. I can
the mid-Atlantic fucking humidity.
I think
I have a shitty connection, guys, so I'm just gonna leave video off for a little while. Sorry about that. For whatever reason, my Wi-Fi is giving me trouble.
So they have to look at Andrew and I.
Yeah. I mean, they can look at my pretty little thumbnail pic with my pink hair. That's always.
Yeah.
That was years ago.
That's from the Confectioner Punk days.
Mm-hmm. I know.
So.
People still associate me with the pink hair, even though I haven't had it in years. I haven't even bleached my hair in years. So
all right, since we're talking about shitty weather, let's jump into this. GOP bill would give each taxpayer $4,000 to take a vacation anywhere in the U.S. through the end of 2021.
What? $4,000 won't fucking pay for a vacation.
Depends on where you go.
Wait, every taxpayer?
Every taxpayer, yes. So, a new Republican bill, which would give each American $4,000 to take a vacation anywhere through Okay, so Senator Martha McSally unveiled the proposal on Monday, called the American Tax Rebate and Incentive Program Act. That is the American Trip Act. It would give each person a tax credit. Yeah, it would give each person a tax credit, meaning they would have to apply for the write-off up to $4,000 in travel-related expenses and tax forms. The threshold would double to $8,000 for couples, and additional $500 per child for all travel within the U.S. to cover food, drink, lodging, live entertainment, transportation, including airfare and car rentals.
Okay, but let's be clear. This is not like a stimulus check. Okay, they said
it's a tax
credit.
Yeah, it's
wait,
a tax
wait, write-off or credit? They're two different things.
Let's see. It says American Tax Rebate Initiative Program to apply for a write-off up to $4,000 in travel-related expenses.
Yeah, you have to have receipts.
That's out of pocket for you. You have to have receipts, and then it's not like you get that money back from the taxes you paid. What that does is it lowers your taxable income, and if you have enough deductions like that, you can maybe push yourself down into a lower tax bracket.
So
maybe if you're fucking lucky.
It would apply to trips taken between December 31st, 2019 and January 1st, 2022. meaning people could write off a vacation taken earlier this year. The tax credit would have only apply only to journeys that are 50 miles beyond the taxpayer's, quote, principal residence.
Huh.
So if you take a vacation that's only 40 miles away, sorry, no dice.
Huh.
So anybody who lives even remotely close to like a tourist location like Pigeon Forge in Tennessee or the Wisconsin Dells or Branson, Missouri, or that if you live too close to those, it doesn't matter that you went to a major tourist destination, you still don't get it.
Okay, but here's what's funny, right? Aren't we all supposed to be like staying home and social distancing, and aren't they discouraging fucking travel right now, but they're going to turn around and incentivize travel?
Yes.
It's like, so is it bullshit or is it not bullshit, the coronavirus thing?
It's both. They're giving you both a carrot and a stick simultaneously. Right. Like if you take the carrot, they hit you with the stick.
Right.
That makes Pavlovian sense. Conditioning.
Schrodinger's pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's both real and not real simultaneously.
Yeah. Quote. The tourism and hospitality industries were among the hardest hit sectors across the country, and their revival is critical to our economic recovery. My legislation will help boost domestic travel and jumpstart the comeback of our hotels, entertainment sectors, local tourism agencies, and the thousands of businesses that make Arizona one of the best places in the world to visit. She added, it will also encourage Americans to safely get out of their homes and discover or rediscover Arizona, along with the rest of the amazing destinations our country has to offer after a difficult several months stuck inside.
So a lady who represents one of the states with the highest population of at-risk people, the elderly, is inviting the entire nation to come fucking visit her state.
Yes.
It's not that she likes her state that much. She just really freaking hates it. So
right. Okay.
Just all right. Screw you all. Die.
All right.
What is there to do? What is she talking about the premiere? What is there to do in Arizona? I guess you could historically interesting. You could visit.
Can cook. Yeah. If you've ever wondered what it's like to sit inside a preheating oven, you can go to Arizona.
Well, McSally, who served in the Air Force, is locked in a close Senate race with Democratic challenger Mark Kelly, a Navy veteran.
Oh, wow.
Mark Kelly, you guys know that name, right?
Yeah.
Can't be good for this.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah.
But I mean,
I'll tell you what, you know what's weird? What most people don't realize, Andrew can fucking verify this. What's really odd is that in the armed forces, most of the officers, AKA the ones who went to liberal universities, they're all fucking liberals. Like, yeah, it's crazy, the division of right versus left in the military. Like the ones you can spot them super easy because they're the ones with fucking officers insignia, the lefties in the military.
Oh God, who's the guy? He does uncensored tactical. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's based out of Arizona. He was in the Coast Guard and did the
Coast Guard is the worst. Most of them are fucking
he did
liberals.
He did boarding for inspections and all this other stuff. But he actually talked about that, about how the upper tiers, how people that would are resistant to big government, how they're pushed out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, definitely, especially in the fucking Coast Guard. Don't fucking get me started. Kevin worked for them for 7 years. Don't fucking get me started.
You're almost totally the military, though, guys. I mean,
yeah.
it's totally. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying the military has a caste system, and people who feel that they're better, people who just feel that they're better than everyone around them, AKA officers, just typically tend to lean to the left. And I think that's pretty typical of lefties in general. They just have this sense of self-righteousness and like they're better than everybody else.
Well, and that's why you see the cult of personality develop around generals who aren't like that.
Right.
Like Mad Dog Mattis. I mean, don't get me wrong, the guy's still statist as shit and everything else. I'm not pretending he's anything but the reason that people loved him so much, not just Marines, but even Army and Navy, and I don't really give a fuck about the Chair Force, but the reason why, it's not like they actually see real combat, let's be there's a reason why they kind of coalesced around that, because he wasn't one of those elitist scum.
Right.
He was actually a halfway decent leader, like from years ago, Dick Winters, if you're familiar with the Band of Brothers and stuff, probably the greatest officer to ever serve in any military ever, Dick Winters. Everybody loved him because he was an elitist and he cared more about the guys than he cared about himself, which is rare. If anybody wants to know how most of the military views the officers very easily, listen to this song. It's from like the Vietnam era called Big Muddy. Derek, I don't know if you're familiar with it. We're knee deep in the Big Muddy, and the lieutenant doesn't listen to anybody and winds up drowning.
Yeah, quote, drowning. Yeah, I know. My dad was a lieutenant in Vietnam in the Army. And he always says, that he felt fortunate to have like the support of his men and things like that, because so many lieutenants were getting greased by their own guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Blue.
My dad was the payroll officer, so they fucking liked it.
Oh yeah, they had to stay on his good side.
Yeah.
He had that advantage. But yeah, that sums it up though, is the fact that like NCOs, because we're NCOs, we are very close to the guys because we used to be one of them. So
right.
We completely understand them, whereas the lieutenants and things, the captains, the majors, they don't ever really interact with even the enlisted because, well, they're scum essentially.
They're beneath me.
Yeah, I'm an officer. I mean, and that's the mentality, and you see it, and it's so funny because the American military is ostensibly supposed to be, kind of founded on American ideals, and it's totally not. It's still very similar to the British Army, where you had the same kind of caste
the
system.
Aristocracy filling the ranks of the officers. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
And I think that not only is it because those officers went through the liberal university system, but also I think people who naturally kind of feel that way gravitate towards things like positions of authority. Like that's what they work towards. Other people just want to get in, do a good job that they can be proud of, and live a good life. But there are people who just feel like they need to tell everybody else how to fucking do shit. And those people gravitate towards being officers, and they gravitate towards being lefties.
Okay. Just for shits and giggles, because General Mathis came up, I had to look up a tweet, and Dirica said that thing about telling people how to live and all this stuff. Chairman of the Libertarian Party, Nicholas Sarwark, when Mattis left the White House, Nicholas Sarwark put out a tweet officially inviting General Mattis to join the Libertarian Party, based on his foreign policy.
Yeah.
So
his foreign the man who said, and I quote, "I didn't bring artillery this time, but I'm begging you with tears in my eyes, if you fuck with me, I will kill you all." That guy, his foreign policy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, but at least the GOP is trying to give us tax credits for taking a vacation, you guys.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, me and my sister talked about that actually, like the other day, where we laughed about the entire idea. It's like, wait, so when no one has any money, and you're telling everyone to stay home, you go, well, we'll pay you back for going and violating the quarantine.
Hey, this works though for me because I'm driving the boys across the country this summer to visit my family. We're driving from East Coast to West Coast and back. So if any any of these little localities, if I get fucked with by the law, I'll just be like, hey, it's for a tax break. It's a tax break. Yeah, like the federal government encouraged this. Yeah.
All right. Along those same lines, the Fed sent more than 1 million coronavirus stimulus payments to dead people. According to
they never sent one to us. They said they were going to.
According to the GAO.
Yeah, I actually know somebody on when I posted that on my Facebook actually commented that one of my friends that her mom, her dad's been dead for a while, and her mom actually got a stimulus check for him.
Yeah. Huh. As much as $1.4 billion paid to deceased Americans. The IRS says that money must be returned.
You returned it. That you were returning our money when you did that. Yeah, and now we're going to return it to you, quote. Return it.
Yeah.
Who are you going to go after if it's not returned? The dead person?
Yeah.
We're gonna put a lien on your. Yeah, we're gonna put a lien on your cemetery plot.
On your headstone.
Gonna confiscate your ashes. All right. More than 1 million stimulus. Okay, blah blah blah.
Confiscate my ass.
They might. All right, that's just one of the major findings in a new government accountability office. Okay, government accountability office. That's. The CARE Act passed by Congress. In addition to mailing checks to some dead people, the GAO found that federal agencies, like the Small Business Administration, which was tasked with processing more than $600 billion in payments to businesses forced closed by the pandemic, struggled to handle the massive surge in spending that caused confusion and left government auditors unable to do important oversight work. Right, hold on. Okay, quote. Consistent with the urgency of responding to the serious and widespread health issues and economic disruptions, agencies have given priority to moving swiftly where possible to distribute funds and implement new programs. As trade-offs were made, however, agencies have made only limited progress so far in achieving transparency and accountability goals.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah.
We've been trying really hard. Promise.
They're so well known for their transparency and accountability.
Well, and don't forget the GAO. They're the ones who got caught a few years ago, having spent millions of dollars on parties in Vegas, featuring strippers and lobster tail dinners,
on
and
keychains and or key fobs and cozies and T-shirts and just.
Who watches The Watchmen, right?
Yeah. They're going to investigate themselves and find they did nothing wrong.
Well, and that was the best part is when they got caught, everyone's like, well, who do we call on to investigate?
This is the best part. Okay, I'm trying to get through this paragraph. Okay. Officials from the IRS told the GAO that they raised the potential problem to Congress even before the CARES Act was passed. So they knew this was possible before it was even signed. After the bill was passed, IRS attorneys determined that the agency did not have the legal authority to withhold payments from deceased individuals.
Wait.
Yep.
What?
Because of the way the bill was written.
IRS attorneys determined that the agency did not have the legal authority to withhold payments from deceased individuals.
And here's why. Here's why. So, and this is why the IRS brought it up and went, guys, so the way the law was written, if you had filed a tax return in 2019, for 2018 or 2019, you got the payment. But people who are deceased could have filed, or even if they were deceased before the filing date, someone can file on their behalf, and it still reads as if they're the ones who filed, which means that unless that provision was written into the law, the IRS cannot say no and has to pay it.
Oh, hold on. Okay.
So the bill literally tells them to every fucking person who paid taxes.
Yep.
File the tax return.
Yep. Everybody who
whether they're still alive or not.
Hold on. Yep. Okay. One more paragraph, and then we'll all laugh for 10 minutes. Okay.
Or even if they're not a legal U.S. resident.
California passed its own stimulus package to give money to non-documented immigrants. Okay. Officially, the IRS says that any payment made to a dead person must be returned. But the GAO notes that, quote, the IRS does not currently plan to take additional steps to notify ineligible recipients on how to return payments.
So you have to give it back, but we're not going to tell you how.
It's
What are
like,
you supposed to
it's
just...
like a fucking disgruntled wife, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. It's what? Like, what do you? Am I supposed to just bring a
You-
money
you
order
know
down
what-
to the local
You know
office?
what you did wrong. You know what you did wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and if you
yeah.
don't, I'm certainly not going to tell you.
Yeah. Like they're looking. Oh no, everything's fine. What? Are you sure? 'Cause it
How-
doesn't seem like it's fine. No, I'm fine.
Are they like? Does this mean that they're not going to like bring in mediums to talk to dead people to tell dead people how to return the checks that was sent to them?
Like it's
God.
Like how do you notify ineligible recipients if they're dead?
Well, I mean, obviously those people's heirs can cash, any like transfer around assets that used to belong to that person,
only
whoever the
if-
executor was.
only if
Thunderkill.
only if the estate is still still in escrow. Like as soon as everything's closed out, that's it. It doesn't matter if you get a check for, even if you had been executor, if you get a check for them, you can't cash that.
Huh.
But where it gets even more stupid is that amount of money, even though the check will never be cashed because it can't be, that amount of money will still be stricken from the books.
Right. Well, it's all fucking only on the books to
Yeah.
begin with.
Because it's all imaginary anyway.
It's all imaginary anyway. So if they can just strike that money from the books, why don't they just fucking strike money back onto the books?
Yeah, but if you can erase it, why can't you just write it back in?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Just take the pen. Here, let me help. Just take the pen.
Yeah,
and
if
just
it
write.
doesn't fucking exist anyways, why don't you just fucking give yourself like 200 trillion fucking dollars? Problem
Yeah.
solved.
Abracadabra. There you go. Now it's back again. See
Yeah.
how easy that was?
And like it doesn't even have to like cause inflation because you're just cooking your fucking books. None of that actually entered the market at any point.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
It never actually went anywhere, which means that it never started existing. So just
Yeah.
put it
You're just
back.
taking imaginary bills out of your back pocket and sticking them in your shirt pocket. So who fucking cares?
Like the IRS just look at the Fed Reserve and be like, "Hey, yeah, knock that one off the books, huh? Credit us
Yeah.
that one." That's
Yeah.
that one.
Right.
Yeah, it's all a magic trick anyway.
Yeah. It's all fucking hocus pocus and smoke and
And I love-
mirrors.
I love the little image that they used, and it's the skull and 2 bundles of money.
Oh, jeez.
Skull and what, 50 grand? That looks like 50 grand. Are those 3 bundles on the right or 2 bundles on the right? That's-
Who cares?
Three on each side.
Yeah. Okay. So it's 6 grand. It'd be 60 grand then.
It's a couple of stacks, yeah. But yeah, it's
And there's people out there getting all fucking worked up and stressed out and their blood pressure's going up over fiscal irresponsibility in the government. Dude, it's all imagination.
and like that's
None of
that's
it's
one of
even
the
real
things-
fucking money.
that's one of the things that like I've actually like had arguments with people about regarding this is people like, oh, it's our tax money, blah 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 blah. No, they got 2.3 trillion from the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
Like that's why the
Yeah.
national debt went up $3 trillion this year so far.
Yeah, they literally took out a fucking loan to do it with zero down and a shitload of fucking interest.
Interest. God, that interest.
It's like the United States military, or when you have infantry guys who buy cars at insane interest rates with money that they don't have, and
Oh yeah.
except the entire government
That's
runs
like-
that way.
E1 through E4, right? Like that's the group of guys we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Ones
At their
who are like,
first duty station, buying that truck they always wanted with like 23% fucking
Yeah, a
interest.
Dodge Charger at 24% interest. Sold, sir.
It's like the government. That is exactly the federal government's fucking spending habits. They're like a fucking E2 in the army that's never had any cash in his pocket before.
USAA
But now
is
he has-
offering
now he has
me
a-
a loan with no
Yeah.
payments for 3 months. Hey, I'll be deployed for 6. Sweet. Like,
Yeah. And he has a job where like anybody will fucking loan to him because they know all they have to do is go to his command and they'll start garnishing his paychecks. So yeah. Yeah,
and
the
it
government-
Says,
Yeah.
in the last paragraph, it says the full cost of CARES Act stimulus will be felt for years to come. The one-time infusion of cash has caused the expected budget deficit for 2022 to quadruple from about $1 trillion to nearly $4 trillion.
Yeah. And
Well,
at most, dear taxpayers, at most, your taxes are paying the interest on that fucking loan. And that's it. Like that's
And
how
it's
they
not.
think of
And
their
it's not
spending.
even covering the interest.
Right. Yeah.
It is not even covering the interest because it keeps going up.
Yep.
Like imagine if you tried to run a business the way the United States government handles itself fiscally. Imagine if you were like, "Oh, I already owe $100 million, but I really want this new piece of equipment that's $50 million, so I'm just gonna go get another loan."
Yeah.
And you just keep doing that. And
Yeah.
just keep doing that. Like there's going
Right.
to be a point where you are going to have to close your doors, except because it's government, they don't.
Or instead of closing your own doors, you could do shit like what happened in 1913 and end up fucking controlling your own huge bank. And then the debt never really ends up fucking mattering because you're just jerking yourself off at that point.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
So-
exactly like, I mean, if people are tearing down Woodrow Wilson statues, they should tear down the things that he helped create also.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Hell yeah.
That's-
The
well, I
Fed
have-
is fucking racist. Black Lives Matter. Go
Yeah.
burn the shit down.
Yeah,
Fed is
destroy
fucking
that.
racist.
Yeah, where's Anonymous on that? Why aren't they hacking the Fed Reserve?
Yeah.
It's all
Yep.
about theater. It's not about
Well,
anything
there's, like,
real.
Who was it that was just calling for the global reset of capitalism? Did you guys see that?
Fucking
Oh,
Al
yeah.
Gore. Al
Yeah,
Gore
yeah.
and all
Yeah.
those other elitists, yes.
Man, bear,
Right.
pig.
Yeah. Super cereal, you guys. We need a federal
cereal.
super cereal. We need a global reset of capitalism, you guys. Super
Hit
cereal.
the internet.
Because it'll save the polar bears.
Let's save the whole planet. Yeah.
I saw.
So like if we hacked into their database and wiped out all of our debts, right? And like wiped out all of our tax information and all that shit, we're criminals. But if they just all get together and decide to wipe out all of their fucking debt and like reset everything so that they can escape the consequences of their irresponsible spending over the years, they're not criminals. They're fucking brilliant statesmen.
Well, and that's actually one of those things too that ties into what I'll be talking about on Tuesday with the Weimar Republic. The reason that it saw the kind of economic implosion, because a lot of people are misled by school that the Nazis rose because of an economic depression in Germany, which isn't true. Germany actually at the beginning of the rise of the Nazis was incredibly affluent.
Prosperous.
Because they were riding the same wave that the United States was with a lot of cheap money, and here's why. So at the end of World War I, the Allied powers, with the reparations, they have all these war reparations that Germany has to pay. Well, Germany has to pay Britain and France primarily this money, but they obviously don't have it because their infrastructure imploded because, they were at war for 4 years.
Right.
So they don't have the ability to make that money to then pay them. So then the United States goes, well, we're super prosperous and we'll totally loan you that money. And they go, sweet. So they loan the money. Except here's where things get even more complicated. So they're borrowing money from the United States to pay Britain and France. But Britain and France need that money. And the whole reason that they had the war reparations is because they had to take out loans to pay for their own war. And they took it out from the United States. So what's happening is the United States is loaning money to Germany, which is then paying Britain and France, who are then taking that money and using it to pay the U.S. So all
it's a perpetual motion machine.
Right.
It's like one of those little things that you keep on your desk with the little ball suspended and you like hit one and the one on the other side, and it just goes like that forever and ever and ever, back and forth. Yeah.
And so what's happening is that this is going in this nice big cycle, and all that's essentially occurred is that the war debt has moved from Britain and France that's owed to the United States to Germany, which now owes the United States.
Right.
And that's it. That's all that's occurring, is that they're transferring their debt from one place to the other.
And America ended up just paying itself.
Yeah, and America is paying itself essentially for all of the things that it had supplied. And the reason that all of this is still working is because the American economy is continuously being built on speculation. It's being built on a guess that the great economy that the United States has in the late teens and early 20s is always going to be there. So you have all these people with paper fortunes where they're millionaires on paper, but they don't actually have any capital. None of this actually exists. So all that's happening is this endless magic trick where there's no actual capital being built up, but it looks like there is on paper. And then one day all of the confidence drops out of the market, and because no one's confident anymore, no one invests anymore, everyone's trying to sell. All of the value of the American economy drops, which means the value of the loans that Germany has been taking out has suddenly dropped, which means that the value of the economy of Britain and France has collapsed.
And then the Dust Bowl happens, the Great Depression, because the stock market crashes. And
and everything implodes on itself because none of it was ever built on anything real ever.
Yeah.
It was all a magic trick. It was all sleight of hand. There was nothing.
And this all started happening around, what was that year, you guys, where all this shit kind of started?
Just before World War I, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see. World War I officially started in like 1914.
That feels like a coincidence. Did something happen in 1913 that might have had something to do with it? Maybe during a lame duck session over the holidays.
And it seems to me like there is this guy who also pushed really hard to get the U.S. into World War I in like 1916, who might have been president at the time too in 1913. I can't name, but they tore down one of his statues recently, I think.
Aren't they renaming a bridge that was named after him? Or I don't know, you guys. This all sounds awfully familiar. Anybody listening, you really should look this stuff up. Cough, Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Cough.
Well, the funny thing is we saw the exact same thing happen in 2008 with the repeal of Glass-Steagall, which was instituted as a direct result of Black Tuesday. And then it gets instituted that says that banks can no longer, because that's what was really happening, is that at its core, what started a lot of this was banks were taking money from people who were putting money in banks. And they were then, and also borrowing money against the outstanding like mortgages and loans that they had.
Right.
And they were taking that and using it to invest in the stock market on their own behalf.
Right.
So they were gambling with borrowed money, which sounds like a great idea right up until your horse doesn't come in.
Yeah.
And now what do you do?
If we do it, we get our knees broken by a bookie in a back alley.
Yeah. If the banks do it, they go, hey, federal government, we need help. And then banks go, okay, well, no one can pull their money out. We're going to devalue it because we're going to come off of the gold standard and the silver standard. And we're just going to go ahead and make all money imaginary. And then you just get completely bailed out of your situation. But that's why Glass-Steagall gets instituted, is to keep them from doing that again and say, no, you're not allowed to do that. You can't do this imaginary thing. And then Bill Clinton in the 90s is so in bed with Wall Street that he gets convinced by Wall Street, no, we promise we won't do anything stupid again. But just go ahead and repeal that. Not that we're saying that we're going to do that, but if you could repeal that so we can start doing that again, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm not going to move the football, Chuck. I'm not going to move it.
Yeah, and then he does
football this time.
And that works really, really
You'll
well right up until, like Germany, we have the American housing market where it's all fake debts. It's all fake money that's been spent on real things, and all of a sudden all those debts come in, they can't be paid back, and everything implodes again.
And the whole time since that repeal, there was all this subprime lending, of course, because it was super fucking easy for them to do it at the time. And so people were in houses they couldn't fucking afford. And, you know, and it became like a seller's market. So prices went up and up and up and up and up. And then boom, it all fucking comes crashing down again.
Yeah, and that is exactly what happened during the stock market crash that led to the Great Depression. It was exactly the same thing. It was really cheap money.
And you know what? I remember when the housing bubble was building, we were thinking about buying a house at that time just because we were finally out of the military. You know, we had another kid on the way. I was pregnant with Caleb. And, you know, we were tired of living in apartments. And, you know what it's like. Living in military housing is like living in a fucking apartment, right? So we wanted our own home. But I tell you, just being home during the day and watching shit like Flippers, you remember those?
Yeah,
like the shows.
Everybody was flipping.
And watching like how much fucking profit these people were making off of these flips. Something about that just made me hold back on wanting to buy a house. I was like, how is this shit sustainable? This is like way too fucking rapid. These profits people are making, and then. Yep. So we held off like 6 fucking months and the bubble burst.
And that was exactly.
And we bought a house at the bottom, almost at the bottom of the market.
And that's exactly what happened in Germany, too, is again, Germany at the rise. The part of what contributed to the rise of the Nazis was that it was in Germany was exactly the same thing as the Roaring 20s in the U.S. It was an era of decadence and hedonism and everybody spending
luxury
tons of money.
And,
because it was cheap money. You could borrow money for very, very cheap. So because it was such cheap money, everybody had money.
What's the
Do you remember the 80s were very much like that? Like the cutthroat fucking corporatism of the 80s where it was so
80s
rampant.
and 90s.
Yeah, so rampant and so fucking in vogue and all of that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and you know, you have guys like Belfleur, you know, the Wolf of Wall Street that had, you know, rose to power at that point and was at the height of his notoriousness. Was any of this legal? Abso-fucking-lutely not.
Notoriety, yep.
But I mean, you saw the same thing leading up to the crash in 2008. And what's funny is up until the COVID thing, we were starting to see it again.
And you know what? What kills me about all of this is this kind of shit, like the rampant corporatism, decadence and luxury, and like these obscenely wealthy people. You know, this is the stuff that the left loves to fucking harp on as a result of like free markets and capitalism and unregulated whatever. No. None of this is possible without a government magically creating, you know, invisible fucking money out of thin air. Yeah, that is what fucking causes this.
It's that and the international banking cartel. I mean, without them, you do not have these bubbles. You do not have the capacity for these things to occur.
Because every unit of currency is backed by a real fucking asset somewhere. Without them, there's no way to back anything you're using as currency without something of equal value that it represents.
Well, and that's exactly what Jason and I were talking about just before you got on with, because I work in lending where because of COVID and we own all of our own assets. So we don't borrow any money to be able to lend money. We saw a 40% drop in our receivables, which is enormous.
Yes.
And really painful. And so we had to lay a bunch of people off. We had to start being closed extra days. We had to limit everybody's work hours.
But you didn't lose any of your buildings.
Not any that we kept open. We did close a few stores and stuff. But what else is really cool that I have to say I'm it really impressed me is our CEO has straight up said at the beginning of this, as long as everybody's not getting 100% of their normal paychecks, I'm not taking one.
Well, that's
He is
good.
not getting paid a single dime right now, and until we get back to 100% again, he's not going to get paid a single dime. He won't take it. So that's really impressive. That's leadership.
Yeah.
You know, that's really cool. But that's how you run a business, when you actually care about your assets, when you're not just borrowing money to make up the difference. You have to make cuts like that. That's how actual businesses run. That is not how international banks work, and that's not how governments run. When they
That's
start
not how
drops,
corporations run, because corporations run on the fucking imaginary money as well, in a big way. They're very different. These big corporations they're almost government entities. They're very different from regular fucking market-based businesses. Market-based, like, businesses that don't run on this free fucking invisible money, they have to care about everything they can put to work for them and make them work for their business. They have to care about their human resources, their other, like, physical assets. They have to care about all of it. They have to care about their customers, because all of those things have to be in a healthy condition for their business to do well.
And you see a really big disparity in that, because, like, we're not a corporation. There's at the very top of our tree, once you get all the way up through the subsidiaries and stuff to the top, it's Grupo something that owns us, but it's named for the guy who owns the entire massive multinational company. One guy owns it. He's like the richest guy in Central and South America, and he owns all of it, and ultimately is at the top, which means there are no shareholders to answer to. There's no investment money coming in. This is all just, we own this stuff, you know?
And with no investment companies, there's no fucking politicians with a vested interest in what this fucking company is doing, because they're heavily invested in it. You know, like, there's so much of that goes on in the halls of Congress and, you know, down the street at the lobbying headquarters, that people don't fucking ever seem to give a shit about. It couldn't be a more conducive environment for corruption if somebody had fucking deliberately planned it to breed corruption.
Like, George R.R. Martin couldn't come up with a more corrupt way to run things.
Yeah. No shit.
It's so bad, and it's everybody's.
At least the Lannisters dealt in real gold. I mean, like, they physically moved gold from one place to another.
But even in that, you saw where the crown was borrowing tons of money that it couldn't possibly pay back.
From the Lannisters.
Yeah, from the people who actually had gold. Which meant that at the end of the day, who controlled your government? Not your king. The Lannisters did.
Yeah.
And essentially, statists in the real world go, well, but we need to give the Baratheons more power because the Lannisters are getting too powerful.
Right.
Not ignoring the fact that you admit that the Lannisters are powerful because they own the Baratheons. You're still going, but we need to make the Baratheons more powerful.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Right. Right. And the one honest guy who went and tried to fix any of it got his head chopped off in the first season.
Almost immediately. He died. Yeah,
I wonder how much George R.R. Martin really follows American politics. I mean, you got to think that he's...
Well, yeah, and you look and then you go, and Littlefinger, the guy who's the most manipulative, conniving little bastard, he's the real power constantly through everything.
Yeah, behind almost the
whole time. And it's
by hook or by crook.
Yeah. I mean, he's the guy who said one of my favorite quotes: "The chaos isn't a chasm, chaos is a ladder."
Yeah.
That's
Oh God, yeah. That's. I flashed Soros.
Yeah.
George Soros.
Chaos is a ladder. That's like what in our comparison? It's like Wall Street. Is that Wall Street?
Well, a Wall Street crash.
Yeah.
That's essentially
The
what
crash.
it is.
That's
Wall
what it is.
Street
I mean,
Crash is a ladder for the people who really want to seize power that are in the background. It gives them the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. And we're not talking about like, politicians or lobbyists. We're talking about people like the Koch brothers and George Soros and, the DuPonts and like these old money, the Rothschilds. These are the fucking people, the people that basically own the central banks. These are the people using chaos as a ladder.
Yeah, the Bilderberg Group.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter.
Chaos.
George Soros funded.
Meat ladder. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Fodder as fuck.
Yeah. This is why I spent all weekend in my bedroom watching stupid shit like the Dick Van Dyke Show.
I was really mad. I wanted to get Lindsay to watch Idiocracy because I'm like, it's basically turned into a documentary and you really got to see it. And I'd seen that it was on Netflix. Looked for it.
Wait, she's never seen Idiocracy?
Nope.
What has she been doing with her life?
She had never even heard of it.
What?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, you got to watch it. And then it's not on Netflix. And I'm really ticked because I really wanted her to see it, because if you haven't watched it, like the very first time you watch it, one, it's quotable as hell.
Oh, so fucking quotable.
I got a solution.
And it's really easy to remember the quotes too, because they're all so fucking retarded.
It's got electrolytes, which are what plants crave.
Yeah. We got this guy, not sure. He's going to fix it all in 1 week.
Everybody shit's all emotional.
I know everybody's shit's getting all emotional up in here.
The opening line of the speech. Shit is fucked up and stuff.
Yeah.
I love the way he enters too. It's just fucking glorious. And then I watch Trump come on stage and I go, oh my God. Like, it's only a hair
Camacho.
Off. Yeah, he's basically Camacho. Was his what's his name? The something Mountain Dew Camacho.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it has become a documentary. I really wanted
Dwayne Herbert Elizondo Mountain Dew Camacho or some shit like that.
But that is the world that we're currently living in. Is this weird intersection of Idiocracy, 1984, Fahrenheit 451, and Brave New World. Those have all come together, and they are the timeline that we're on. Goddamn Sir Weasel.
Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho.
Oh, I mixed two of them up. Sorry.
Yeah. I just remembered the Mountain Dew was in there because I laughed.
But no, hard. I've never seen that movie before. But I remember his whole fucking name.
I tried to explain, no, it's a world.
Oh, in the movies, the intersection of movies, you got to throw in a little bit of Ready Player One too. There's a little bit of that in there too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's. All I can think
and I'm talking about the IOI work camps or whatever, where they put people that owe them money into. That's what I'm talking about from Ready Player One. So.
And it's this weird thing that we've found ourselves in. And what's sad is that those of us who recognize what it is, we all get looked at like we're nuts.
Mm-hmm.
We go, this is literally what this is, guys. How do you not see this? And everyone's like, oh, you're just paranoid.
And we have been talking about this for years, 3.5 years on this fucking podcast. We've been talking about this exact same fucking shit.
You can even modernize it with the girl with the bow and arrow. I lost my train of thought. Never mind.
What?
Ignore me.
Hunger Games.
Right. Hunger Games. Yes.
Hunger Games. Yeah. There's a little bit of Hunger Games there, and you see a lot of that. And the funny thing is, you really do with the Capitol. If you look at New York City and Los Angeles, you can see a lot of parallels with the Capitol from Hunger Games, where everybody's got tons and tons of stuff, and they're just completely oblivious.
You guys, I'm I'm a little fucking baked, so I just had a thought pop into my head. It doesn't have anything to do with anything, but can somebody look on Pornhub and tell me if there's a movie called The fucking Thirst Games? There's gotta be,
God.
right? Come on. There has to be a porn somewhere named The Thirst Games.
If they can turn Pokemon into a porn, I'm sure they've figured out a way for Hunger Games to also turn into.
Yeah.
I can already see the plot in my head, and oh god.
Hey, did you guys see that one post that was going around? It was screenshots of like Pornhub video previews or whatever. And it's like some like super polite British guy, and the videos that he's uploading are like, I deliver a pizza to your house and we have a respectful interaction and I leave with a decent tip. And
yeah, or
or like
we enjoy a lovely night out. I take you home and then leave.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Or I walk in on my stepdaughter doing the dishes and I tell her thanks for doing a good job. You know, like shit like that. Like setting up these porn scenarios and then being like super polite and respectful instead.
On Amazon, there's a book called Pleasure Cube. Let the Thirst Games Begin.
Oh, nice.
Oh, God.
A taboo paranormal erotic fantasy novella.
Wait,
What?
hang on. I need to write that down. Can you send me a link? In Telegram.
Yeah, I will drop it in Telegram for you. Yes.
The worst thing is, I do actually know somebody who writes like erotic novels that they self-publish Kindle editions of on Amazon, and some of the topics that they've gone with, and I'm like, what the? And they're like, oh, there's a market for it. There's a market for all of it. There are people who are into this insane stuff.
People will fucking fetishize literally anything. Like I love reading romance novels, but I go through some of the shit that's available on like Kindle, right? And I swear to God, like any fucking thing that happened in the news anywhere, these romance writers will make it a fucking dirty story and write it down, and people will fucking buy it.
It's completely like there's one that they wrote that was an erotic novel about like vampires and werewolves who are also like Wall Street investors or something. Like it was just.
Oh, I think I read that one.
Oh God.
This is what I put up with, people. These are my family.
Dude, I'm telling you, there are tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of romance novels about vampires and werewolves.
There's still no 9/11 porn, so I'm not impressed.
And the thing is that these fucking paranormal romance, like vampires, werewolves, and shit, this shit was around way before Twilight. Twilight was like a fucking sad attempt to break into that fucking genre.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Did you ever read the last vampire series? It was like a young adult novel series that was like super erotic and like not young adult at all. It was just adult through the whole thing. And like I read those in middle school.
I read a lot of weird shit in middle school.
Yeah, and like they were already a couple of years old by the time I read them. So this stuff's been around a really long time. Anne Rice, for God's sake.
Anne Rice, yeah. Oh, her shit is erotic as fuck. It's just not like super blatant, but there's so much like
it's very homoerotic too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I can remember one of my friends complaining in middle school actually about it. Like I don't really like Anne Rice because she has straight dudes touching each other an awful lot. And
she puts some weird shit in every once in a while. Like I was reading Memnoch the Devil, and there were a couple of like plot points where I was just like, Jesus, what kind of mind comes up with this shit?
And that's the one that came out right after Interview the movie came out. Because in the opening of the home video on VHS of that, I remember her mentioning that she had just finished Memnoch the Devil. Yeah. And then it might be the last one that she writes with Lestat at all, and she wasn't sure.
And that was such a weird one. It was like centered around like the Shroud of Turin and stuff. It was really really fucking odd.
Well, I guess you know what Brown read before he decided to sit down and write the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah. Which is his most famous book, but honestly, it's not his best book. Digital Fortress was his best book.
I thought most of his books are kind of lame. I don't really like his writing style. Like, he makes so much crap up, and it's like, but historically, that's totally wrong, and you're getting dates wrong, and you're inventing people and disregarding.
Well, Andrew, you have to read Digital Fortress. You have to.
It's still Brown, and I just can't.
Yeah, all right, fine.
Fucking weirdos. My God.
Are you calling us weirdos?
Weirdos all reading and things, like some sort of psychopaths.
Yeah.
To be fair, the character in The Last Vampire, Hope Alyssa.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter is named Hope Alyssa. Her mother, when we found out we were having twins and one of them was a girl, her mom said she will be named Hope Alyssa. And I said, and Jennifer said no.
The Last Vampire. I do remember The Last Vampire. That was my young self's introduction to like erotic fiction. And
yeah,
it was those books. I'm not proud of it, but it happened.
Yeah.
So
mine was just old, like, paperback romance novels that were sitting around the house, like, I
read westerns.
Yeah, Danielle Steele and shit like that.
See, I just read mostly nonfiction. To this day, I read mostly nonfiction, watch mostly nonfiction, and I don't really bother with a whole lot of fiction very often. So
I mostly read fiction. Yeah, because you know what? The real world fucking sucks. I mean, reading is my escape. I want to get away from it. Why would I like dive back into it?
I read mostly dystopian fantasy.
I bet that does wonders for your fucking mental state.
Oh yeah. All right, let's get on to something that's not going to be made into a romance novel. Prison guards who lock naked inmate in cell.
You said prison guards. There are romance novels about prison guards.
We're already there.
Yeah, we're already there.
Prison guards who locked a naked inmate in cell filled with massive amounts of feces.
All right, stop. Well, except for the feces thing, naked inmate in a cell, prison guard. Yep, there's a romance novel for it.
I don't kink shame people, Dunica. Prison guards who locked naked inmate in cell filled with massive amounts of feces got qualified immunity.
Fuck.
A group of prison guards who forced an inmate to live in 2 cells infested with human feces and raw sewage for a total of 6 days are protected by qualified immunity and cannot be sued over the incident, a federal court ruled.
Didn't the guy die?
No, not to my knowledge.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm mixing headlines in my head.
Yeah, though the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit acknowledged that the squalid conditions in which he was kept violated Trent Taylor's Eighth Amendment right to not suffer cruel and unusual punishment, the panel afforded the defendants protection from civil liability because no similar situation has been ruled unconstitutional under previous case law.
Because case law is more important than what the law actually fucking says.
And they won't set the precedent.
Yeah.
I
don't know how courts ever fucking get away with declining to set a fucking precedent. That's literally your fucking job, is to interpret the law. Holy shit. What do you mean you don't want to set a fucking precedent? That's your entire fucking job.
Yeah, and this is a really recent thing with courts. I mean, it really is, this trend to not want to set precedents, because up until recently, like, courts were like, okay, well, we're setting a precedent, which means we need to take this really seriously and really weigh, the pros and cons and everything else, and make sure that our opinion is super specific if it needs to be, so that it doesn't get misapplied in the future. And they just did that.
Right.
And that was how it worked. And now suddenly these courts are just constantly going, well, there's no precedent and I'd just rather not set one. So not it.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm kicking the can down the road.
Yeah. On September 6, 2013, Taylor said he was forced into a cell with, quote, massive amounts of feces across the floor, windows, walls, and ceiling. It gave off a strong fecal odor. Taylor
and a
claims,
court declined to draw a line that this was not acceptable.
No, the
court-
court admitted that it violated his Eighth Amendment.
Yeah.
But said that they can't be sued.
Yeah, but said that they can't be held liable because there's no case law.
Right.
So Taylor claims he could not drink the water because feces was packed inside the faucet, and he did not eat over worries that the food might be contaminated. Taylor alleges that Cortez, Davidson, and Hunter, those are the guards, laughed at him when he expressed his concerns that one guard told him he was, quote, going to have a long weekend. Taylor says that Swanee similarly shrugged off his complaints, telling him, quote, dude, this is Montford. There is shit in all these cells from years of psych patients. Taylor stayed in the cell until September 10th. So that's 4 days in that cell. On September 11th, Taylor was transferred to an empty seclusion cell with a clogged drain overflowing with raw sewage. Lacking a toilet, he was told to urinate on the floor, but because the drain stopped up and because he lacked a bed, he would then be forced to sleep in his own urine. Taylor refused and proceeded to urinate on himself involuntarily after 24 hours had passed. He stayed in the cell till September 13th, after which times the guards took him to escort him back to the feces-inundated cell. He begged for a different placement, and the guards obliged.
Jeez.
What? This is... So,
Circuit Judge Jerry E. Smith writes in his opinion that Taylor's case meets the threshold for an Eighth Amendment violation. He cites two previous court precedents that affirm a prisoner not to be subjected to erroneously unsanitary living conditions. The judge writes further supports Taylor's claim that the guards acted with a deliberate indifference, which Smith notes is, quote, no small hurdle.
But this is the kind of thing that people get executed for after the fall of regimes.
Yes, that is absolutely like if like war prisoners were kept like this,
Mm-hmm.
it's a war crime.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Smith, that's the judge, goes on to say Smith transitions into explaining why the guards deserve protection with civil liability. Quote, the law wasn't clearly established. Taylor stayed in his extreme dirty cells for only 6 days. Though the law was clear that the prisoner couldn't be housed in that cells teeming with human waste for months on end, we haven't previously held that a time period so short violated the Constitution.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh my God. So you can
Hold on.
violate the Geneva Convention without violating the U.S.
As long as it's only for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
We only tortured him very briefly.
And
right.
The judge, like in one paragraph up, the judge said, yes, this violates the Eighth. In the next paragraph, he says, we haven't previously held that a time period so short violated the Constitution.
How long does it take to have violated a thing that says don't do this? I'm pretty sure the moment that you do that, you have in fact violated it.
Yeah.
That's like saying, okay, well, yeah, I murdered him, but the paramedics were able to bring him right back, so he wasn't dead that long.
Well, I murdered him, but I only spent 30 minutes doing it.
Yeah, so it's not like that actually counts.
Yeah.
Well, it was a quick death. It's not murder.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I robbed those people, but I brought the money back after only 4 hours, so.
Right.
Yeah. The law wasn't clearly established. Taylor stayed in the extremely dirty cells for only 6 days. The law wasn't clearly established, and they refused to establish it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, think about that. So, imagine the average person, like, imagine this judge, if you took him and put him in that cell, I guarantee you, he would go, okay, this is wrong immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wouldn't go, well, I've only been in here a week.
Yeah. He wouldn't even go, well, I've only been in here 5 minutes.
Yeah. Immediately when you put him in, he would say, no, this is wrong.
Yeah, like in the same piece of writing, he says, yes, this violates the Eighth Amendment. And then says that there's no time period to establish.
This is
So he contradicts himself within his own fucking statement.
Speaking of us living in 1984, that is Orwellian doublespeak.
Yeah.
That's what it
definitely.
is.
Definitely.
That's doublespeak. You're simultaneously saying that it's wrong, but then saying, but I mean, it's not that wrong because it was only for a little bit.
Kevin calls it talking out both sides of his mouth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree completely.
Yeah, and it's...
because his head's up his ass. So he is talking out both sides of his mouth.
And it boggles my mind. It absolutely boggles my mind that you could say you put this guy in 2 cells, not 1, 2.
One covered in feces. The guy couldn't eat or drink anything. And then another cell with a clogged drain. Yeah. So that if he took a piss, he'd have to sleep in his piss. So he held it as long as he could and ended up pissing himself.
Yeah.
And somehow this doesn't fall under torture.
Yeah.
Just blatant torture. If an Iraqi insurgent did this exact same thing to an American prisoner of war, we would hunt him down and summarily execute him with a drone strike.
Yeah.
Yep. Or take him to Gitmo and proceed to torture him for years.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
But
sure
Americans can't even sue when it happens to them on American soil.
I'm pretty sure the SOP for Gitmo wouldn't allow this.
It wouldn't either. And Gitmo has more oversight because it has oversight from the international community because prisoners of war are kept there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, this would be a scandal of epic proportions if it happened at the hands of our military in another country.
Well, there was the Abu Ghraib.
Abu Ghraib,
yeah. And that was pretty bad.
Yeah,
that was pretty bad. But even that was.
Oh, and it pales in comparison to this, really, because essentially
Abu Ghraib was like humiliation.
Yeah, essentially
punished too. By the way.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they from what I understand, at least 2 of them went to Leavenworth.
Yeah.
But which is a prison which has such deep, dark corners that if you get tossed in there, everyone forgets that you ever existed.
Yeah, and there were dishonorable discharges for like all of them, and
and all they basically did is strip dudes down and then pose with them for photos.
Yeah,
and that's what they got for that. They didn't even truly put their health at risk.
Right.
And yet these cops did exactly that and can't even be sued.
Yep. Because they have qualified immunity.
Yeah, I still love my freaking meme that I made with it. I have qualified immunity. It's just been revoked. Because every time I hear it, that's all I can think of is it's just been revoked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Griffin doing it.
Yeah, and all of this is just to say that there's a fucking double standard for like the justice system workers, from LEOs to prison guards and all of those, judges and fucking attorneys and prosecutors and shit. There's a double standard in this country. Yeah, they are in the fucking gang and you are not.
Oh yeah, and if the American military, I mean, if you look at a lot of the things that have been going on even lately with the protests and the response to them and things, those are violations of the Geneva Convention, like plain and simple they are. If you were a member of the American military on foreign soil and there was a protest against you and you responded by cracking the skulls of old men, firing tear gas into the crowds at all because it's poison gas, if you fired rubber bullets at children and maced children and the elderly, and you did these things,
right,
you would be found guilty by a war crimes tribunal for having done things that violated the Geneva and the Hague conventions.
And what would happen to you if you subdued an enemy combatant and they were immobilized and you fucking kneeled on their throat for 9 minutes on the hot fucking pavement and they died? What would happen to you then?
You'd go straight to prison.
Yep.
You would go to Leavenworth immediately. Yep. And the only reason you wouldn't be held liable by an international court, fun fact for people that don't know, American military cannot be held liable by the UN War Crimes Tribunal.
Well, of course not, because they're the military arm of the UN.
Well, and it's because the United States is the only permanent member of the UN Security Council that refused to sign on to that treaty. And in fact, threatened to kick the UN out of New York and threatened to leave the United Nations if the United Nations pushed and forced them to allow American military to be subject to international war crimes law.
Right. Yep.
I mean,
Tell me that that's not a...
the ICC comes out all the time about U.S. war crimes, and the U.S. media goes, eh.
Right.
Well, it's funny. It's funny that we brought up war crimes. I mean, that was a nice transition. Thank you very much. But Julian Assange's indictment does not mention the WikiLeaks video.
Of course it does.
Oh, collateral murder.
Yeah.
Just
Collateral
kind of glosses
murder,
over
yeah.
that one.
Yeah, it absolutely does not bring up collateral murder.
What an interesting coincidence.
Yeah, it says U.S. prosecutors have failed to include one of the WikiLeaks' most shocking video revelations in the indictment against Julian Assange, a move that has brought accusations that the U.S. doesn't want its war crimes exposed in public.
Because then it would become a matter of public record.
Yep.
Yes. Assange, blah, blah, blah. U.S. tries to extradite him to face 18 charges, 17 under its Espionage Act, for conspiracy to receive, obtain, and disclose classified information.
Which, let's make it clear, this whole thing is exactly why Julian Assange is fucking targeted by them. This is exactly why.
Yeah.
It's not because he put anybody at risk. It's because he fucking risked exposing their fucking bullshit.
Assange went out of his way to not put anybody at risk. He went through documents and redacted names to be sure that even though he disagreed with what these covert ops guys were doing, they were not exposed and put at risk. He wanted their deeds exposed, but he didn't want to hurt anyone, even the people that he felt were doing evil. He didn't want to expose them.
No, he didn't want them exposed. He wanted the world to see what was happening.
He wanted their masters exposed.
Yeah. So the charges relate largely to the U.S. conduct of wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, including Assange's publications of the U.S. rules of engagement in Iraq. The prosecution case alleges Assange risked American lives by releasing hundreds of thousands of U.S. intelligence documents. One of the most famous of the WikiLeaks release was a video filmed from a U.S. Apache helicopter, Crazy Horse 1-8, as it mowed down 11 people on the 12th of July 2007 in Iraq. The video starkly highlights the lax rules of engagement that allowed the killing of men who were neither engaged nor threatening U.S. forces. Two of the Crazy Horse 1-8 killed in East Baghdad that day were Reuters photographers. Baghdad bureau chief at the time, Dean Yates, said the U.S. military had repeatedly lied to him and the world about what happened, and it was only when Assange released the video in April 2010 that the full brutal truth of the killings were exposed.
And the sad thing is about that video is that when it came out, I didn't see anything wrong with it. I didn't, plain and simple.
You were a part of the machine at the time.
Mm-hmm. I didn't see anything wrong with it, and I was completely on the government side when it came out that said, well, but you don't understand what war is. You don't understand where a group of military-aged armed men in a combat zone is perceived immediately as a threat. You just don't get it. And that was my attitude. And I didn't even pay attention to what the video was actually showing when I saw it. I was like, whatever. I mean, that shit happens and civilians just don't get it. Once I learned exactly the circumstances behind the video, though, I was like, oh my God, you boys fucked up.
Yep.
Oh no.
And like we could even, I don't know, kind of wrap something else up into this is like, if they're if they're not willing to indict Assange for this video, why was Chelsea Manning thrown in prison for so long?
Yeah,
For refusing to help.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's exactly it, is they wanted to punish the people involved for it having been leaked.
Yeah.
But they don't want it to be public record because then they're going to have to account for what its content is.
Right. Right.
Which they'll never do. There's zero accountability when it comes to the federal government.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And in like lower levels of court and like criminal cases against us citizens, like the regular courts and things like that, there's standards that don't get applied higher up. Like if you guys ever watched the Innocence Files on, I think, Netflix, it's crazy the shit that prosecutors fucking withhold, but technically that's against the law. They're not allowed.
Hashtag Camellia Harris.
Right. They are not allowed to withhold exonerating evidence by law. They do it all the fucking time anyways. But there's laws governing that. But once you get up to the highest levels of government, they get to withhold all the fucking exonerating evidence they want because they can just slap a fucking security. They can just slap a top secret sticker on it and do whatever the fuck they want. It's like in From Paris with Love. He takes his fucking diplomatic stickers to the goddamn airport and just slaps them on the guy's bag.
They can take it to the FISA court.
Yeah,
and not only do you not get to see the results, you don't get to know who talked before it, what the ruling was, what the evidence was, any of it.
Yeah.
And that is a legal court in the United States.
Yeah.
Zero accountability, zero transparency. These are the people that ruled the Patriot Act constitutional.
Right.
Oh yeah, and it's such a weird contrast that's developed here because not that long ago, if you're a Tom Clancy fan, if you used to read Tom Clancy, part of the reason, like if you read Rainbow Six, the original novel, Rainbow Six, that the whole reason that they base their operations, remember, in the UK is because the UK doesn't have freedom of the press, so the government can force them to not print stuff about the operations that Rainbow Six is doing.
Right.
So,
but now, modern US, you don't even have to base it in the UK anymore. You can base it here.
Yeah. Because the same people that own the media own the fucking government. They have all the fucking legislators in their pockets in one way or another.
Hashtag Bilderberg.
And the government is their most lucrative business.
Oh, so, absolutely. Without the government, these large corporations and the mass mainstream media, they don't exist.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The government is their most lucrative subsidiary, is what I should have said. Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so they're not going to let their other subsidiary, the media, expose their fucking most lucrative subsidiary.
The CIA has a branch of their office in Hollywood that deals with Hollywood movies and entertainment.
They work with them constantly. We had to take a scriptwriter around from Hollywood to show them stuff and run security for them and run interference for them. And that totally happens. You see that now with vape versus big tobacco, where the government is waging a massive war on vaping and making shit up constantly and trying to
because of how powerful the tobacco lobby is.
Right, because what's happened is that with people switching to vaping, because vaping doesn't get taxed, and that tax money doesn't go to the states, because remember that big settlement back in the 90s with tobacco. All of that revenue is being lost. So now the government is more than happy to help big tobacco to go after vaping, because that will push everybody back to smoking and they'll get all that sweet, sweet tobacco revenue.
Right. But at the same time, the government is always encouraging people to quit smoking in their fucking propaganda campaigns, and like the public health service campaigns and shit like that. So again, they're fucking talking out both ends of their mouth.
Yep.
So,
don't do this, but we do want you to do this because we need the money.
Right. Yeah. And we know that, the more we tell you to do it, the less you're going to listen to us.
Yeah.
We're going to desensitize you to the message.
Yeah. Quote from Dean Yates. He says, quote, "What he did was 100% an act of truth-telling, exposing to the world what the war in Iraq looks like and how the U.S. military lied. The U.S. knows how embarrassing collateral murder is, how shameful it is to the military. They know that there's potential war crimes on that tape."
So it's a journalist being persecuted for engaging in journalism.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I know.
Journalism
I just wanted to sum that up for everybody.
Journalism about the United States military killing journalists.
Journalists. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing. And that is the thing that horrifies me the most is like, because I remember being that guy. I remember being one of those dudes, I was a true believer. So like, I remember watching Collateral Murder and being like, it's war. It happens, right? Like you target things that weren't actually to oops. And, and you listen to the radio conversation, you go, well, he was cleared to fire. He was weapons free. You can't blame him.
Yeah, because of
he double checked.
Because of the lax ROE.
Yeah, he even double checked and he said, okay, are they legit targets? And he got a yes. So he fired.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that family pulls up to help them and they fire through the windshield, well, they're clearly insurgents because they're responding to help insurgents.
Right.
And you buy that crap.
Yeah.
And like old me disgusts the hell out of me now. Like, oh my God.
I'm familiar with that feeling. Yeah.
Oh, like how? How did I believe that crap? How did I buy that? And buy those lines? Well, it's war, so things happen in war. And it's just the way it is. And now I look at it and I go, but they weren't a threat at all to anyone whatsoever, and you had no reason to believe that they were, and then you shot at them anyway. Like, no, that's murder. That just simply is murder. The reason it's called collateral murder is because it's collateral damage. That's how it's viewed by the United States military. Well, that's unfortunate, but it happens because it's war.
So what are we going to name this episode? Something like War Crimes and Bustin' Rhymes?
Nobody's rapped yet.
I just asked because we got like a few minutes left and then it's 11. So
yeah, it's getting late. I want to bring up one more. Like I have like 3 more articles. I'm going to bring this one up because. All right, Minneapolis council members who voted to abolish cops get private security.
Yeah. There's that elitism we're talking about again.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
On the taxpayer dime. By the way.
Course.
Yeah, if it was on theirs, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it.
Yeah.
But...
3 members of the Minneapolis City Council who voted to eliminate the local police force are being protected by a private security detail that costs taxpayers $4,500 a day.
And who is this private security detail hiring at this like surge in business? All the cops who are getting laid off, maybe.
Yeah.
Essentially, the police have just shifted into being private armies for the fucking councilmen.
Except they're not even private armies because they're publicly funded and serving public officials. They just changed names.
But they're security details for those fucking. Yeah, so now it looks like, it looks like security paid for by taxpayers, but really, they're fucking private armies.
Yeah. News of the arrangement broke Friday, the same day the council voted 12-0 to abolish the Minneapolis Police Department in the wake of the killing of George Floyd. Quote, "My concern is the large number of white nationalists in our city and other threatening communications I've been receiving." That is council member Andrea Jenkins, adding that she had been asking for private security ever since she took office in 2018. Hold on. The city spent $63,000 on rent-a-cops for Jenkins and fellow council members during the last 3 weeks when after the 3 said they received threats. But an MPD spokesman said that no complaints of threats against them had been filed. All three have pushed the movement to scrap the city police in favor of a, quote, peace officers and a, quote, holistic public health oriented approach to law enforcement.
Now, on the surface, that sounds great.
It's fucking
You know?
word salad, though.
But it totally is word salad.
It's a freaking
Yeah.
salad dressing for the word salad.
Orwellian double speak again.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
What does that mean? And if you ask them, and because they've been pressed on that, they don't actually have an answer.
Yeah.
They turn into Donald Trump with his. It's going to be great. It's going to be It's going to be so wonderful. It's
Now,
going to be the
if
most
they would
community based.
call us and ask us, we could give them a fucking answer.
Yeah,
But nobody wants to listen to us.
I have a great solution for community
Yeah.
policing.
Yep.
It's actually just a couple of sentences. Actually, something about a well-regulated militia and security and free
Armed.
people and things.
Armed society is a polite society?
Yep,
Yep.
exactly.
That's why I said at the beginning of this talk of defunding police departments, I kept saying the first thing they need to do is repeal all fucking gun control laws in their precincts and localities.
Which they
That
never
is the-
will.
They never will. No. But that is the one thing that could make all of this
No,
fucking
it's-
work and work
it's-
properly.
It's hilarious. Like the LA Times put out an op-ed piece from their editorial side. Put out an op-ed piece the other day, complaining about the number of new gun owners. This is also while they're talking about defunding the police and the riots and
Yeah.
all this, and yeah, we have too many guns. That's the reason all this is happening, is because there's too many guns.
Yeah,
What I want to know is what's going to happen to all the police gear. Like the departments get defunded, there's nobody there working. What happens to all their fucking gear?
I think we should homestead it, first come first
I
serve.
think it needs
I
to
think
be
so, too.
liberated.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that needs to be liberated by the people who
Listen to me. I'm like, fuck all the rest of that. Where can I get some body armor?
yeah, where do I get? Well, first of all, I don't want cop level body armor because it's garbage.
Oh,
But,
Right. Well, okay. Well, where can I get a fucking MRAP?
yeah, the MRAPs, they have M203s. I would like a couple of M203s. I could put those to good use.
Couple
Yeah.
of M4s, a Bearcat,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that could be useful.
some riot shields. I'm good.
Yeah,
Hey, we paid for that shit. We're entitled to take it back.
I'm all for that. Like I am for the communal redistribution of that particular wealth.
Hell yeah.
I'm all for that.
That's
Like,
not redistribution. That's redistribution.
yeah. If it was stolen in the first place, is it technically?
We're just recovering stolen property.
Yeah.
Is that socializing the socialization?
Yeah.
We're going to re-socialize the socialization.
We're fucking homesteading your commune.
That's
Sorry,
one of
We're
my that's one of
homesteading
my
your
favorite
commune.
that's one of my favorite terms in reference to government property.
Homesteading it.
Homesteading, yeah.
Homesteading.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I said, squatters' rights. Like just show up, bust into the armory. What the hell are you
Yeah.
doing? Squatters' rights, bro.
I'm gonna squat in the fucking police station itself. Once I
Take
squat
it
that,
over.
everything in it belongs to me.
See, that would be
The,
beautiful.
lo-
just
the
to
local
make
the
it
local Nat G has a hole cut in the fence.
I was gonna
Just
say.
saying.
That's-
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, my local National Guard armory sucks, man. It's like all engineers. Like it's lame.
Yeah.
They don't have
Well,
anything fun.
I live 8 miles from a weapons testing laboratory, a U.S. Navy weapons testing lab.
Oh, see that.
Rail guns, baby.
That is where.
Rail gun.
yeah. Yeah. They're testing fucking lasers over there and shit.
Do you guys
Hell
have
yeah.
rail guns? Can I get like 3 of those?
Yeah.
Imagine a technical with a badass rail gun. I just pull up. Oh, you done fucked up now.
Walk out of there with a couple rail guns and some FRAS armor.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah.
What's the FRAS armor? What's it, like 16,000 or something like? Or
It is ridiculously
Yeah.
expensive. It is really. I've looked at some of the higher end stuff because it is better. I mean, it
is fantastically better.
I'll never disparage. Unlike a lot of people who like to lately, it's become this trend to disparage level 3, not 3A because 3A is garbage, but 3. And there's been this trend to disparage it because of a few YouTube videos that came out of people using garbage armor. And they're garbage plates. Like, they're clearly not hardened correctly. They don't have the anti-spall coating properly. There's no trauma pads behind them. There's just...
It's 11 o'clock. Save it for Weapons Wednesdays.
But anyway, I'm seeing that this new stuff that's coming out, some of this stuff is incredible, and it's super amazing, and it is better. But Jesus Christ, that's as much as a new car. Oh my God!
What's the 4-tube nods? What are they, like $35,000 or something like that?
And all these boo boys running. Oh, I'm gonna run. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
No, you're not. Not unless that's a battlefield pickup, buddy.
Those nods cost more than your entire life.
Yeah, Jesus. So that is why you homestead the armories and the police, because then you can just acquire this.
What you do is you got to hook up with the rich guys that don't train.
Right.
You know? Hashtag loot boxes.
Yeah, just hang behind them and wait for the loot drop.
Yeah. The rich guys that just want to be part of it because it makes them feel cool, right? So you adopt them as a little mascot and let them buy all your gear.
Yeah.
Everly stock pack. Yeah. Everly stock packs and Riki 7 ARs.
Yeah. Everybody's running around with high-end Israeli crap and
FNX 45.
Come on, man! Don't you
hollow sight, Scott?
Don't you want your boo unit to be the best outfitted? I mean, come on, you're gonna be part of this. You don't want to be the guy who's the part of the poor unit. So help a brother out,
right? Right.
Yep.
And then those rich guys end up as fucking warlords in the post-apocalyptic America because they were the ones paying for the army, so it's their fucking army now.
Well, I mean, if they pay well.
Yeah. If they can keep paying.
Yeah, as long as they can continue to pay. The moment you don't pay me, we're going to have a problem.
Well, I don't know. There's always the postman scenario. The guy has movies and a movie projector.
I mean, I really want
the laws of 8.
Yeah.
But he's got
a challenge for leadership of the clan.
Take what you kill. Come on. Let's set up a ring, couple of knives. Let's do this.
We watch way too much dystopian and post-apocalyptic bullshit, you guys.
That's what we should do. The state domes. We should turn the state domes into thunder domes.
Yeah.
And let politicians just battle out.
Get out.
Like the fucking Verizon Center and shit. Hell yeah. All right.
Welcome to CenturyLink Field.
It's Monday Night Rehabilitation.
Oh, God.
And you dig it.
Is it Thursday Night Rehabilitation?
Thursday Night
The Dildozer. Ass blaster.
Wood chipper Wednesdays.
Wood chipper Wednesday.
I would fucking pay to see that.
Politicians giant, it's a thin little platform, and they have the punji sticks, and it's just the giant funnel for a wood chipper underneath them.
I always said political disputes should be handled like fucking Thunderdome. The politicians who have beef with each other, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Don't fucking involve the rest of us in this shit. Make us fight for you. Fucking work it out yourselves like men.
Yeah.
Christ.
I mean, there used to be a time in American politics where that happened occasionally. Where
not just American politics. There used to be a time in global politics.
Oh, yeah. Well, there still is in some countries. It was just a few months ago, there was Ukraine or something where that full on fist fight broke out.
Fist fight, yeah.
That was amazing. It was a bench clearing fight. Both sides. And I'm like, yes.
What are those? There's always those videos from parliaments in where is it, the Philippines or or somewhere like that where they're all fucking constantly getting in
Thailand.
fist fights. Thailand, yeah,
Mhm.
where they're always fucking beating each other up.
You know how
On
much
the
better
conference
the
call.
ratings on C-SPAN would be if that happened constantly? Like all these fat old white men just
Put it on pay-per-view. Put it on pay-per-view. That's how we're funding the National Endowment for the Arts.
That's
We're
right. Yep. Yep.
Somebody's just using Nancy Pelosi as a bat.
Yes.
Oh my God.
She's too
That would
brittle.
just-
She wouldn't make a good bat. She's too brittle. AOC might. AOC would be a good bat.
She's kneeling in the corner crying.
Oh man, I'm just thinking like it's too bad Ted Kennedy's gone because man, I would love to have watched him try to get into a fight. 1 minute.
I'd like to see like Scalia toss fucking Ruth Bader Ginsburg into a wood chipper.
See Rand Paul and Lindsey Graham go toe to toe. We know Rand could take a punch, so
Yeah,
Right.
I guarantee you Rand would beat the living crap out of him.
And they would have like 10 minutes dedicated to Gary Johnson just fucking fighting himself, punching himself in the face.
Now we go over to Johnson. Okay, that's enough of Johnson. Back. Ow! Ow! No, you bake the cake. No, you bake the cake. No, you bake the cake.
Oh, shit, that's fun. I gotta go though, you guys.
where's Aleppo? All right. On that note, I have
War
no,
crimes and busting rhymes.
I have no good outro. Just homestead
Just
your
us-
local.
I was
Yeah,
fucking laughing.
Make sure you check out my Facebook page, Inked Anarchist Hootenanny Roundup, because
Link will be in the description.
and
Yeah.
Buy Derica's book. Link is
Yes.
also in the description.
yes,
Yeah.
and if you have a beard and would like amazing beard care products, I'm also sponsored by The Beard Struggle. You can use the code Inked Anarchist 15, all run together, for 15% off of really awesome beard care stuff. It smells amazing, and it's all like.
and yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's that was literally the end of the whole shit.
And I was gonna say, if you want more information on anarchy, another good source is a monthly magazine coming out now called Sword Anarchy. You can look them up on Facebook.
Yes. Jackie Kerouac,
Yeah, she's putting out great stuff.
Dharma
so-
Iyer for people not on Facebook.
Yeah, right. So I probably actually will visit with her and Rachel Nielsen in this summer when I drive across the country. I'm planning to stop with them for one night. So that'll be fun. But do check out the magazine because they're putting out great stuff. And
Yeah,
she's working
that's,
very hard on it.
That's on Facebook. That's Road to Anarchy. I'll throw the link to that one in the description also.
Yeah,
So, on that note, nothing else.
nothing else.
All right, homestead your National Guard, and
Homestead
Yeah.
your local armory.
Yeah.
homestead your local armory. And,
Homestead your local public property. That is public property.
It's ours.
Yep.
yeah.
It's
All right.
ours.
Hashtag
We
we the
paid for
people.
Yeah. We the people. We the people, man. We the people.
Again, these people are my family, you guys. Hashtag save me. Peace.